Are you recording, Ozzy? Oh, now we're recording. Hello and welcome to episode 99 of Third and Wrong, and we're off to a flying start because Ozzy's in control and he's showing off his now outdated Tom Brady shrine because Tom Brady has added a seventh ring to his collection. Um, we'll make this episode really short, guys. Tom Brady's a really good quarterback and probably the most accomplished we'll ever see. What else can you say? I'm just kidding. It's good to be back. I'm your co-host, Stephen Bolin, and I'm joined as always by Zach Foth and Austin Dalonga. I guess we'll go to you first, Ozzy. How are you feeling after Sunday's game?
Oh man, I'm just elated. I can't believe it happened. After last week's episode where we had everybody else say the Chiefs were going to win, I was definitely quivering a little bit, and so it was nice. It was nice relief to see the a blowout victory, and I was able to relax for much of the second half. So ever since then, I've just been on cloud nine.
It's really happy for you, Ozzy. It's like Jeff Bezos making another million. You just can't help but shed a tear of joy for him. Zach, how are we feeling after that game? And it's no secret you and I aren't exactly the biggest Brady fans. In fact, after they fell to 7-5, I reposted that video of you and I slandering Tom Brady, which that has aged like milk now. Although at the time he wasn't playing great. And so here we are after they've defeated the Kansas City Chiefs. What was your takeaway from that game?
Not too happy about it. I'll tell you that much. It was a horrible, for the average fan, that was a horrible game to watch, man. You want to see high scoring both ways, enjoyable. Chiefs just got destroyed. Horrible game plan offensively. I was very disappointed. Extremely. I could have shed a tear with how disappointing it was. I just also want to have a quick shout out. We're in the KJ brand hoodie today.
Let's go.
Heckin' right. So go get your KJ brand stuff, guys. It's comfy, fits great,
looks good.
Great.
Yeah, looks great.
Exactly. Yeah. So just want to throw that out there. But the Super Bowl, trash. Yeah.
For those wondering, go back and listen to our episode, Call Me KJ, episode 88, same as his number, actually. He's re-signed in Calgary, so he'll be lighting it up soon again. But yeah, that's Super Bowl, guys. I guess if we dive right into it, the biggest thing that struck me is I felt like I was watching a Seattle Seahawks game. Like the way Kansas City stubbornly stuck to their game plan. It didn't really adjust. And I was listening to Michael Lombardi on the GM Shuffle podcast, and he mentioned how Tampa Bay was playing too high. Todd Bowles' masterful game plan, too high safeties. I heard that term enough times in Seattle, and we talked about how they slowed down the let Russ cook era, and just daring Kansas City to run the ball. And Le'Veon Bell, I don't think, saw the field. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who they invested a first-round pick in, was actually eating some pretty big chunks of yards. But I mean, Kansas City was going down with the passing game, and, shitty O-line or not, they were not going to deviate from their game plan, and they didn't score a touchdown because of it. And I think, I guess we're all still learning football, which is a fair assumption. So when you see things like the new analytics coming out and passing versus running, and you see like how much passing's taking over, and then you have these games where it's just like the fundamentals and the old adages of football, defense wins championships, and it starts in the trenches, all of a sudden just become true again. And they sound cliche, and the analytics guys laugh, but then all of a sudden we're left sitting here. And it wasn't Tom Brady's big arm that won in the Super Bowl. He was a big reason for the culture change there. He took care of the football and was obviously a huge factor in that game. But I think the biggest story is Kansas City's unwillingness to adjust. And this is a really bad look for Andy Reid. I don't think you can put too much on Patrick Mahomes, and we'll get to like how this looks on his resume later. But that was my biggest takeaway, was just how stubborn they looked in their game plan. I don't know if you guys saw the same thing.
I was pretty pissed off too with, other than the penalties, and early on, KC showed the ability. There were times where the defense wasn't looking horrible when they had the big stop on the goal line, other than the penalty when they got the interception. Like, things are just, it seemed like they could keep them in the game, but then the offensive game plan, as you alluded to, just they couldn't do anything against that defensive front. We didn't see any screen passes. Andy Reid loves throwing screen passes. He didn't try. He may have tried one and it didn't work, and nothing happened with it. And then Mahomes was left just trying to drive the football down the field. And that's just not going to happen, especially with that makeshift O-line and nothing else going on. It was really shitty to see when you were cheering for KC. I guess for Buccaneers fans, they're all hot and horny for it. But I really think Todd Bowles
And confirm.
Todd Bowles deserves the MVP here. The guy put a perfect game plan together. When you look at that team on paper, coming in, it's the defensive roster. It is absolutely phenomenal. And finally, when they needed it most, it showed up in the biggest time it could have with all that star power. And it was so effective against arguably the biggest playmaker in football right now.
Ozzy, do you see it the same way as far as this is more about Tampa's defense, or, do you want to speak a little bit on Tom Brady's performance? He was very efficient this game.
Yeah, well, definitely. One thing I would like to mention too is you guys had talked about the game plan for the Chiefs. It was very, I had mentioned last Tuesday that the injuries on the offensive line for the Chiefs was going to be the big storyline. I did not expect the Tampa Bay front four to make as much or wreak as much havoc on that offensive line as they did. There was plays where they were getting straight to Mahomes as if there was nobody blocking. It was just utter anarchy back there for Mahomes. And I saw that there was like Mahomes defenders out there because people thought that Mahomes played a terrible game. By no means did Holmes play a terrible game. It was the offensive line that really just butchered that for them. But as far as Tom Brady went, like he was as efficient as you could have asked for. I had I don't know if I should say this, but I had a Patriots fan also watching the game with me on Sunday. And I said that we were due for an early Tom Brady interception, and we didn't end up getting it because he just played lights out, and it was really good to see. He got bailed out by some penalties for sure, but by no means I think the refs did call it a little light compared to other games for sure. And it was kind of unfortunate that they chose the Super Bowl of all games to call it that way, but by no means did the penalties decide this game. It was definitely the defense there. Getting to Mahomes, causing a lot of pressure. There was a couple missed opportunities early on in the game, a big third down drop by Kelsey, a deep ball to Tyreek Hill that he also didn't come down with. So KC had their opportunities to get momentum in this game, and they just never did. And one of you guys had said that Todd Bowles deserves MVP. I think it was you, Steve. And that, oh, nice. I had a 50% chance and got it wrong. All right. Well, Zach, you called it because if he could have gotten on that voting ballot for MVP, he definitely would have gotten it. I was surprised Devon White didn't get it. I thought he had a terrific game, but yeah, Tom was as efficient as you could have asked. And I mean, what else could you ask for at that point?
I guess for me so go ahead, Zach.
No, I was also going to say another person we haven't really talked too much about was how good Leonard Fournette was too.
Yeah.
Man, that guy tore that defense up. It seemed like every time he ran inside, he bounced outside for another 11, 12 yards every single time. And frick, it was hard to watch, man.
Yeah. Fournette played himself into a $14 million per year contract from Pete Carroll. So I'm looking forward for that signing in March. But I guess I'm frustrated with myself, you guys, because all 2 weeks we heard about Kansas City's injuries on the O-line. And I just was naive enough to think that they would overcome that. I just figured, it's Kansas City. They'll scheme their way around it. And we saw Tampa Bay wreak havoc on an, injured Packers O-line 2 weeks prior with Bakhtiari out. And, for some reason I just had the blinders on. I'm like, no, they'll figure it out. And, you can't just figure those things out sometimes. It's really tough. And I don't know why I glazed over that for so long.
I want to also say, Ozzy, you were pointing it out, and I was going to mention those moments of those drop passes by the receivers there for KC, but also that timeout at the end of the frickin' second quarter. Drove me wild. 14-6 game. You're getting the ball back and you're playing Tom Brady, and they have a freaking, I think it was like 4 yards to go on third down and they call it. I'm like, not now. Like, Don't let them go down and score one more time and play it close, get the momentum back after halftime for you guys. And, it really just seemed like Andy Reid has been playing calling plays so well, being such a great coach. And man, this game, he just got out-dueled and it sucked. Like if this was a Yu-Gi-Oh match, he would be in the Shadow Realm. And that sucks. I like Andy Reid, right? So
let's go with the Yu-Gi-Oh references.
Wow. I think that's a first for this podcast.
I see my Yu-Gi-Oh cards right in front of me. I should go grab those.
You still have yours?
Let's have a duel.
Heck
yeah, I'm not getting rid of those, man.
Damn
I'm
it,
going to
I
try
got
to
rid of
bring it
mine.
back. Zach's bringing it back on this podcast.
Duel.
Next year's Super Bowl party hosted by the amateur agency is going to include a Yu-Gi-Oh duel for the pregame.
At halftime. Or pregame. All right, guys. So let's transition to this. We talked about how all three of us seem to agree we're not going to put too much blame on Patrick Mahomes, but everyone likes to talk about GOAT, and God, I think I've heard that term more times than I care to count now. Not even this year or this week, but just for the last 5 years, it's been beaten to death in basketball and football circles. But you guys, it's just a hit to Patrick Mahomes' legacy. A lot of people, I've seen some comparisons on Twitter and Instagram comparing Mahomes' first 3 seasons starting to Russell Wilson's, and first year lost in the divisional round, or first year lost in the playoffs. Yeah. Second year won the championship. Third year lost to Tom Brady. And that's kind of the same. Now, both Russell Wilson and Patrick Mahomes are 1-1 in Super Bowls. Patrick Mahomes is an MVP to his name. I think long-term, guys, this will probably be a blip on the radar. I mean, last offseason, I predicted the Chiefs to win 3 Super Bowls this decade, and they kind of pissed away this opportunity. So now mine's not looking as likely, but I think he'll be okay. But as far as attaining that GOAT status, that loss to Tom Brady is always going to loom large unless he ends up going to win 8 rings, which, I mean, God, that's a tough task, because I don't even know if we'll ever see someone win 5 or 6 again, let alone 8 or 7. So what's your take on this as far as how it reflects on Patrick Mahomes' legacy? Is it a big gut punch, or can he keep steamrolling along? What do you first, Zach?
So I'm going to do the comparison to Conor McGregor here.
Oh.
So when Conor McGregor was coming up, and he was knocking everyone out in the first round, and he was destroying everyone, and he was saying he was doing it, and he was building this legend of himself of being totally unbeatable. Then he came across and fought Nate Diaz, and Nate Diaz put him down and choked him out. We still saw Conor McGregor rebound after that, but ever since then, he seemed human. And one thing about Patrick Mahomes since that, since this last game on Sunday, the Super Bowl, he got beat up bad. If you could say a knockout, he got hit hard a lot, and it didn't look good. It makes Patrick Mahomes look a lot more human. Now, the reason I bring that up is because this is very early in his career. He's achieved a lot in the first 3 years, but now there's this feeling that, Patrick Mahomes, he's amazing. He's outstanding, all this stuff. But at the same token, I think guys are going to believe that they can now slow them down in some way if they have the right game plan and they can bring it forward and play a good game against them. They can go out and win. Not saying they didn't believe in that before, but now it's been shown on the biggest stage.
There's a blueprint.
Now where this goes with it is does this hurt his legacy? He was already compared to Tom Brady, who is the GOAT, and that was his expectation. I do think this is going to hurt that legacy. He's put his standard up there. So looking at this, going into this game, there was that feeling of you need to win this. Now Tom Brady has the win over you in the Super Bowl, and now he has 7 rings. You need to live up to that. How are you going to do it? And it could be a huge fall from grace. And then we start having the conversation about him and Aaron Rodgers being in the same level, Russell Wilson being there too. And unless he goes on and wins 2 championships now in the next 2 years, he has a lot to live up to try and get back to that level. So I think it's not to go against you there, Steve, but I think This is a huge hit on his legacy. Huge.
That was a cool comparison to Conor McGregor. Mm-hmm. I really like that. We'll have to maybe clip that. Just thinking out loud.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Ozzy, do you see it the same way, or do you think it's a blip on the radar?
Yeah, I kind of see it a little bit differently. I do agree in the sense that you're not going to be able to compare Mahomes to Tom Brady like they have been at this point. Everybody wanted well, I even saw on Colin Coward's show that he wanted, like, if Mahomes won on Sunday, we'd have to start considering him as the greatest ever, and it's his third year starting. I think that it's fair to say now that Tom is just in a tier of his own, and as far as talent goes, Mahomes is not short of it. But I think just from an accomplishment standpoint, we shouldn't keep putting him on that level where, like, you're kind of comparing him to literally the best quarterback or the most accomplished quarterback who's ever played the game. So in that sense, it definitely takes a hit in my eyes. I think that, like Zach said, comparing him to like the Rodgers or the Wilsons of the world is a lot more of like a bar to kind of measure by. But so in that sense, it definitely diminishes. But like people wanted to every time Tom would go to another Super Bowl, they'd be like, oh, but those 2 losses, and then they lose to the Eagles, and it's like, but those 3 losses though, like, he can't win the big game. And it's like, come on, like, just because you get there and lose does not mean that it's not an accomplishment in itself. I think people who say that, they don't understand how hard it is to get to the Super Bowl. And maybe that's because the Patriots have been there a lot over the last 20 years. So it kind of diminishes that, the way it's perceived. But it's hard. Like, it's hard to repeat. And the Chiefs just about did it. So the fact that they went there again is an accomplishment in and of itself. So in that sense, I do not think that it hurts his legacy too much. And for that reason, I just think that it just changes how we should be measuring him, whether it's more towards like the Aaron Rodgers and whatnot, rather than to the Tom Brady's. And then also, like, if you were to delve into this like 10 years from now and you say, well, Mahomes has that 1 loss, you can definitely look at the tape and say, okay, well, his offensive line was absolutely shit. It wasn't because of Mahomes' inability by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, I think with look at, he's already been to 2 Super Bowls. Rodgers has been fighting his entire career to get back. You guys mentioned the stat on last week's episode. He's 1-4 in NFC Championship games. Breeze hasn't made it back. Russell made it his second and third year in the league. He hasn't been back since. Only 3 playoff wins in 6 years. It's tough to make it back, but at the same time, I also think it definitely hits that legend or untouchable status, and it makes him human. And I don't know if it really necessarily hurt Patrick Mahomes, but to Zach's point, I think that it's Tom Brady, and then you're kind of fighting with everyone else now. And I think that's kind of where it puts him. Tom Brady's just totally separated himself from the pack, and I'm not sure if anyone will really ever catch him. I mean, and people are going to be kind of stuck in their ways because LeBron James has unequivocally shattered most of, if not all of, Michael Jordan's stats. But people dangle those 6 finals losses over his head every turn he makes. And, he can win 10 championships and they'll still talk about the losses. So I think in a lot of people's minds, I think the GOAT discussion might be over until, another athlete comes along or Patrick Mahomes somehow wins 10 rings or something. So, it'll be interesting to see. I think they'll bounce back. They're still going to be a threat in the AFC perennially, much to the dismay of your Patriots or your Browns, Zach, but I'm safe in the NFC for now. Okay, so guys, where does each team go from here? We mentioned Tampa Bay has a couple of free agents, most in the defense. Barrett, I think Jason Pierre-Paul. We'll see what Gronk's future holds. And Mike Evans said he'll move some money around if it means they can contend again. And I think Brady intends to come back. I want to ask you this, and just so we don't go too far into like the off-season programs for each of these teams, but I'll say this: who's more likely to make it to the Super Bowl next year, Tampa Bay or Kansas City? And we'll go to you, right back to you, Ozzy.
Oh man, this is so tough. Like, yeah. I could see us having a repeat of both. Literally though, I'm gonna go with Tom and the Bucks, and that's because I think that they're able to bring back a lot of pieces. You had mentioned like Shaq Barrett and Gronk and others, but like Barrett doesn't want to go play anywhere else. He's come out and said that. He's got to follow through with that statement, of course, but they're a young team. Like, they really do just have to focus, I would say, on the secondary, personally, but like they're going to bring back much of the same team. And when I look at the AFC, I think that there's I just feel like it's a tougher road for the Chiefs. And maybe this is kind of a blueprint for slowing down the Chiefs, only rushing 4 and dropping 7 back. If that has to prove itself, but I'm going to say the Bucks. I'm going to be a little bit of a Tom Homer here, but I do think that just on paper, looking at what they have coming back, it's going to be, I'd say there's not going to be a lot of changes on that roster.
I think to your point, Ozzy, too, you also have to look at the Saints losing Breeze. The Seahawks seem to kind of be in disarray. The Rams could be a threat. Seahawks, are in disarray. 49ers are still coming up with Garoppolo. So the NFC looks a little more open, and it depends what the Packers really decide to do. Zach, who do you think has the easier path to get back to the big game next year? Who do you see more likely getting there?
This is really easy. I'm actually really agreeing here. Tampa Bay should be back there. The expectations there now. The best roster in football. Barrett, Levante David, Gronk, Ndamukong Suh, Fournette, Ryan Suckup are all upcoming free agents. However, I think they're going to have a really easy time bringing these guys back with the potential of repeating. Tom Brady's just playing efficient football and just getting better in that system. And they found a running game. Man, it sucks for me to say, and I don't want to say it. They're coming in as like personally my favorites. This is what had happened is everything I was scared of this year was looking at that roster on paper and having them work the way they did in the final little bit. And that's exactly what happened. I might be depressed for months and months now, but like it happened at the worst point, right? No, I'm just kidding, guys. Depression's not funny.
That's true. But I don't think anyone will take it that way.
Until you said that.
I know. Yeah. It's okay. I'll get canceled, not you, Zach.
I really think Tampa Bay has some good things going for them. I think they can get a lot of these guys coming up on these contracts to come back at a discount just to go for another ring. When we look at Kansas City, who has Watkins, Bashad Breeland, Alex Okafor, Damian Wilson, Demarcus Robinson, Austin Reeder, I can't say his name, is Osmelly or whatever his name is. Remmers, Sherman coming up. They have Kilgore, Stiffen, Wisniewski. So many guys coming up, and that's not even all of them. I'm just telling you that coming up for contracts next year, I think we're going to have a hard time seeing them actually take that next step that they need to now to beat a team like Tampa. You need to take the next step. Not saying Patrick Mahomes can't do that, because I think they'll be creative. They'll be able to do some really cool and fun things, but they're going to lose a lot of talent. And, the scary thing is they look at the Rams right now, but they have a really talented quarterback there. So maybe things change and they're able to keep their head above water and go a little further than what the Rams have. Rams have done pretty well, mind you. But I think there's an easier road for Tampa Bay back to the Super Bowl than Kansas City.
I agree, guys. I was going to maybe lean Kansas City, but you guys made really good points. And then I got to thinking about the competition level. I mean, the Bills don't look like they're going anywhere. The Browns are coming to play. That was my next one I was going to say. Yeah. The Ravens are a few pieces away. I think linemen, receivers, and, just basically those position groups away from contending heavily again. The Titans could cause problems. The Colts are a quarterback away. So, and then you look at the NFC, I just see a lot of aging rosters in disarray. And I think that kind of opens the lane for Tampa Bay. And I think like the roster points you guys made are also very true as well. So,
but before you jump forward on that one, it pisses me off even more now thinking that Aaron Rodgers had the tools at home to beat Tom and the frickin' Buccaneers.
Oh, yeah.
That is where the heartbreak lies for me, not this Kansas City game with how they went into that game and all circumstances. I'm not making excuses. They should have shown up better, but that really hurt me because I am a big Aaron Rodgers fan too, like with his talents and stuff. They should have frickin' beat Tampa Bay at home. There's no excuse with that.
Yeah,
one.
That was Rodgers finally has a championship game at home and it's all there for them. And they just, that was really disappointing.
Oh,
I wouldn't even know where to begin to dissect that game, and we'd probably make
Yeah.
this episode 2 hours long if
Yeah.
we did. But that
I
was
just
such a
wanted to
blown
say.
opportunity. Yeah,
That would just be the Kevin King like dissection game. Like you just look at
And
every play
LaFleur.
that, and LaFleur. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
and Mike Pettin, like just brutal performances by, and their special teams. Like it was just all disgusting on
At
like one of
home.
the at home of all places. And
I
Rogers
just-
put up a good stat line. Like
Yeah.
they just couldn't capitalize on those turnovers.
God.
Before we wrap up our Super Bowl recap, guys, how do we feel about the weekend halftime show? I know people are put a lot of stock into this. Heard some varying opinions, but the overall impression was pretty positive, and I really liked it. I personally gave it like an 8 out of 10. I loved the little hints and cap tips to Michael Jackson, a lot of different, like just the outfit and some of the choreography. Yeah, I said that right.
Yeah.
And the music speaks for itself. I was hoping he'd bring out, like there's rumors that he might have brought out Janet Jackson, or I was hoping he'd bring out like Drake or something. So that's what was lacking for me. I think it's just my own expectations, hoping he'd bring someone out. But with COVID, I understand why that couldn't be the case. But thought he knocked it out of the park, all things considered, in a pandemic year. And I heard he invested $7 million of his own money into it, which is really cool because, the returns on that could be massive. I think you're going to see his songs shoot back up into the charts and everything. But Zach, you were pretty impressed. I remember you going off in the group chat first there saying how much you liked it.
It is my all-time favorite halftime show. Yep.
Wow.
I loved it that much.
More than
And
Timberlake?
I liked it more than Timberlake, and I
Wow,
love Justin
okay.
Timberlake.
Yes, that's why I
listeners.
asked.
So
Yeah.
he was absolutely phenomenal. Our Canadian boy up there. And to be honest, actually, to not just to disagree with you, Steve, but I actually liked the fact that it was just him.
That's fair.
I like that it was a show. I know he put a lot into that one, obviously with his checkbook as well, but he had, I'm saying this, there was a TikTok that was explaining some of like the narrative behind it. I recommend everyone to go watch that because there was a really good narrative to the reason why he was doing the things he was doing during the halftime show. And it made me like it that much more too. And I was actually really impressed with the vocals and stuff. I'm not a judge or anything here, but I thought with like how bad like vocals usually are in big stadiums and such like that, his singing was very, very good as well. And, it's just being Canadian, man. Being
That's
one
cool.
step there that way is just beautiful, beautiful.
We'll have to rank or go through our favorite halftime shows another time. I really liked Prince's, Michael Jackson's, Beyonce's were all really good, but it's definitely up there. Bruno Mars too. He kicked that one out of the park when he played the drums, the Seahawks Broncos Super Bowl. That was nice.
Mine might be recency bias though, too.
That's fair.
So we'd have to see. We'd have to go back. I'd have to watch
digest it. Yeah. Ozzy, your thoughts on the halftime show before we move on to some dysfunction in Seattle?
Man, I loved it so much. I was so worried that I was going to be like in the minority because every time I see people review a halftime show, they just demolish it. They just hate it, every ounce of it. And they're like, oh, this is the worst thing ever. And I loved every bit of it. And I loved, like, I haven't watched that TikTok video that Zach's referencing, but the whole time I knew that there was some form of symbolism basically throughout the whole thing. And it was just super cool to try to engage with that and to try to figure out what it was. And so there we were on the couch just trying to like go through all the possibilities of what these people could mean, like the masks and the conformity and everything. So it was super, it was a little philosophical for me. And for that reason, like I really liked Coldplay's actually. That used to be my top, but I think the simplicity and plus the symbolism of this one was enough to top it.
There we go. Hey, no, I'm glad everyone had pretty positive review of that one. I remember back when I was a kid watching the Black Eyed Peas one, and that one bombed. That was not a good one.
What one was that? Which Super Bowl was that?
I think the Packers and Steelers one, and it was in the Cowboy Stadium, and like you had Fergie.
Yeah.
Was Slash. I think they brought Slash out or something like that. It was a big mess, which is too bad because I like the Black Eyed Peas. They have some good tunes. So. All right, guys. So just yesterday, Jason La Canfora tweets out that Russell Wilson's camp is increasingly frustrated about the lack of protection. And I mean, who wouldn't be? He's almost been sacked 400 times in his career. So I mean, I'd be pretty frustrated too. And then to double down, Russell Wilson went on the Dan Patrick show today, being Tuesday, and spoke on that he wants more say in the personnel decisions. I think we're starting to see a shift in the NFL now of, Tom Brady going to Tampa Bay and really molding that in his vision. I mean, there was a lot of talk, even we talked about it here, of how he would mesh with Bruce Arians. And they ended up that offense that we saw in the Super Bowl looked more like a Tom Brady run, like Patriots offense, and it looked like anything I've seen Bruce Arians run in Arizona. So, and he had a lot to say. He brought Gronk in, he brought his friends. It felt very LeBron James-esque as far as like bringing your friends down to a spot and bringing the talent around you and making a run of it, being the system. And I think Russ sees that and wants that. But you have also Pete Carroll in Seattle, who's very strong-headed. I've read his book on Win Forever. He has an entire structure and philosophy and program in place, and people kind of cycle through that. And his number one rule is protect the team. And now Russell is not really protecting the team by throwing his line under the bus, because he's doubled down again on the statement saying he's tired of being hit. And that was a quote he said today. This isn't just something that his agent put out through Jason Lecanfora, but it was something he said himself on the Dan Patrick show today. And you had Jermaine Ifedi tweet out a facepalm emoji in response, and then everyone roasted Jermaine Ifedi because, I mean, that was just, he was not a good offensive lineman. We can say that objectively. So, guys, I guess as a Seahawks fan, again, people want things to be black or white, and I think that falls in the gray area. Russell Wilson is responsible for a lot of his sacks. He holds onto the ball a lot longer than he needs to. He drops back deeper than his pocket sometimes because he's looking for that deep shot. And I think I saw someone on Pro Football Focus say he's responsible for 100 of his career sacks, but that still leaves about 300 of which are probably responsible for this the Seahawks O-line. And John Schneider and Pete Carroll, when they go spend in free agency, are always bargain hunting. They've very rarely made big splashes. And when they've had it, it's kind of bit them in the butt, trading Max Unger for Jimmy Graham, and Graham having a couple injury riddled years in Seattle. Percy Harvin, same thing. And then having attitude problems and having to ship him out. I mean, Seattle just doesn't like to spend a lot of big money in free agency. I mean, last year, this time, Russell Wilson was trying to leverage his weight, said he wanted more weapons, and we went and got him a 36-year-old Greg Olsen at $7 million a year. So it's just kind of Russell. I could see Russell's frustration, but I think to a certain degree as well, he has to bear a little bit of that responsibility, and he has. But I really hope we're not heading for a divorce here because of all years for it to happen. Of course, it would be when everyone else's quarterback situations are in disarray, and we'll probably end up getting the short end of the stick, and Geno Smith will be QB1 in September of 2021, which God help me if that's the case. So I guess that's just a little news dump for everyone. I really don't have a take on this. I'm not all of a sudden anti-Russell, but I'm also not anti-Pete Carroll. I mean, we've seen the success he's built as well. I think there's a way to bridge the gap, and I'm really a fan of their offensive coordinator hire, Shane Waldron. I think that was really great, and that was a Russell approved hire. So quarterback coach from the Rams, or he's the passing game coordinator from the Rams. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of positives to take from that. I think Seattle just has to go spend that money wisely now and upgrade that offensive line, clearly. What's your guys' take on these quarterbacks speaking up and kind of wanting to follow the LeBron James or Tom Brady format? Do you think it's possible, or do you think the scale still tipped heavily favored for the owners? Zach, will go to you first.
It's good. I think these athletes should have a voice. However, with the NFLPA and the bargaining agreement and such that's out right now, it leans heavily in the owner's favor. I know with these guys, like say they start holding out and stuff like this. I was listening to, I think it was the GM Shuffle. They were talking about how these guys lose huge amounts of money if they hold out for an extended period of time, especially if you have larger contracts and such. And really their only option is to turn to, honestly, retirement at that point. We saw Carson Palmer kind of in the same predicament back when he was with Cincinnati. Yeah. Now, I do like that the athletes do get more of a say here, and they are voicing their opinions on these things, especially the stars. They are the ones out there putting their body on the line, right? So, I don't think there's anything wrong with, obviously you want that good feeling in an organization. If it's a business, if it's now a team sport, as we're talking here, you want everyone having the same values, the same belief, and going towards that same goal. But it's not always roses and whatever the other thing you say with
Sunshine.
that. And sunshine, thanks. Going to that common goal. And when we look at it here, I don't blame Russell Wilson at all for being like, I want some help. I'm not going to jump much more into it. Steve, you alluded to it perfectly. You're the Seahawks fan, and I wholly agree with what you said. And I do think that their offensive coordinator was a good hire, because I do think schematically, if they kind of follow a little bit of what the Rams are doing, they could place some protection into their game plans and the way they call plays, which I think Russell Wilson will be happy with, because we know he can make every throw on the field accurately and like at the right velocity. And I can't speak enough for Russell Wilson's ability to do that. Now he just needs the right pieces there. So, I'm not mad for Russ speaking up like that. So in the end, I'd have to agree with you.
Yeah, me neither. And I think the biggest thing that's working against players is for it kind of being that NBA vocal and player driven league is the franchise tag. I mean, you looked at what it took Kirk Cousins 2 more years than it needed to for him to get out of Washington. I think it's going to take Dak another year and a half or 2 years even to get out of Dallas, because they can franchise tag him again. And I think they can even do like a transition tag the year after that. So you can get like 3 years of club control beyond a contract expiring, which is just, I always wonder, I'm like, why hasn't Matt Stafford thrown his weight around earlier? And it's, well, because they probably could have tagged him up until this year anyways. So Ozzy, what are you seeing with as far as QBs wanting out? I mean, you've seen it firsthand with Tom leaving New England. I mean, does that leave you jaded, or are you in support of quarterbacks kind of using their muscle?
Yeah, no, I think that it's wise. There's a certain number of players that have earned that right, I think. And Russell Wilson is absolutely in that echelon. Tom Brady, absolutely. Patrick Mahomes, absolutely. Deshaun Watson. So there's a few, and I wouldn't say that there's many. I think that if you start saying, like Kirk Cousins is saying that he wants some more weapons or some more protection or this or that player, then it's kind of laughable. You just shrug it off and you're like, okay, whatever, buddy. But no, I think that it's right for these players to exercise that their platform, just because they, like guys like Russell Wilson and Tom Brady, they've been quiet. Like before Tom Brady left, he was always quiet about the personnel decisions, and then it just happened to leak right before he left to Tampa that he just wanted like appreciation and he wanted some weapons around him. And so then he goes to Tampa where there are weapons, but then he brings in the guys that he wants too, and they end up winning a Super Bowl. It's just, and I don't think that can be the precedent that's set, but I think that guys will play looser because they're having more fun. The Bills were a team that everybody was having lots of fun. They're loose. They liked each other. So if you have a roster where everything just meshes, if it means Russ brings in asks for a guy or two just to make the locker room mesh or the offense mesh a certain way, and guys are playing looser, they're having more fun, and you're winning games at the end of the day, what's wrong with that? Why not take that shot rather than take a couple swings from the front office and miss anyways? You might as well go with the quarterback that's kind of kept you relevant for the last 9 years, quite frankly. Give him that power, and I'm happy to see that Russell Wilson's finally saying something. He's always been a quiet guy. It's just cool to see him in the news talking about what he's frustrated with.
I think for Seattle too, it'd be very stupid to just turn around and trade him. I mean, 2017 was a pivotal moment in this franchise where they decided to kind of shed what was left of the LOB and officially make it Russ's franchise going into 2018. Like they officially kind of gave him the keys. Sherman was gone. They traded Michael Bennett, another vocal voice. They kept Earl Thomas, but then he broke his leg and he was gone. Cam Chancellor retired. I mean, unfortunately, a few of those due to injury. Cliff Averill was gone. So all of a sudden you're left and Russ is the guy and has been the guy since 2018. They've had winning seasons, but Russ is about big on legacy and, being considered one of the greats. And he can't, for him, and probably for many, you can't do that with just one ring or with the limited stats with the offense that they run. So, we'll obviously keep our tabs on that. And if Seattle somehow decides to trade him, it'll be one hell of an episode. That much I can guarantee.
Oh, frick.
Oh yeah. I'm burning
That'd
it
be
down,
wild.
burning the whole thing down.
See him
Okay,
in
guys.
Patriots blue. Oh man.
It goes to
Good
the
rod.
Rams.
Let's
Oh,
go.
Just kidding.
Oh.
Sorry.
him and
I had to
Stafford are
say it.
trading each rep back and forth. Like, oh yeah.
I was just picking it too.
Yeah. We trade him to the 49ers for Jimmy Garoppolo.
Oh no.
I would delete our podcast. I would go to Buzzsprout and I would delete every episode we ever made and just delete everything. Anyways, okay. Hopefully it doesn't come to that. Let's transition to Canadian Corner, sponsored by Devon Lang. You can get 15% off of all your purchases there. That's 15 using the discount code THIRD15. Lots of masks, comfy underwear, and more. So be sure to check them out. They're a great friend of the pod, great supporter, and locally made here in Calgary. So couldn't be more happy to share that. But guys, kind of transitioning now, the Super Bowl is behind us. We're getting hyped up for the CFL season that will hopefully be in full swing. The CFLPA and the CFL will be meeting together to discuss how to safely carry out an 18-game season and some of the parameters that will involve that. Obviously still going to mix NFL and everything. You know, there's no combine, but the draft will be coming up. But the CFL hype's in full swing. Free agency opened up today. And we got a lot of news to catch up even just from the last 2 weeks, starting with Scott Milanovic out in Edmonton before he coached a single game as their head coach and accepted a position with the Indianapolis Colts. He went back down south. And so in response, Edmonton hired Jamie Elizondo. He was Trevor Harris's offensive coordinator in Ottawa for 3 seasons, where Harris obviously lit it up, to say the least. So I think that's a great replacement for Edmonton. It sucks that that happened for Scott in Edmonton, and I hope I didn't say Eskimos at any point in there because we're going to get to that. So just the Edmonton football team for now. And I guess we'll start, guys. What was your reaction when you found out Scott Milanovic was going back down south? Like, were you like, that's pretty shitty of him? Or was it kind of like you can understand just based on the opportunity that presents itself? Zach, you coached your Argos to a Grey Cup championship.
Yeah, he did, Scott. Or not you, Scott, him, Scott Milanovic. Yeah, no, I think this just shows what's number one for Scott Milanovic. He's been down there. He was down there from 2017 to 2019 with the Jacksonville Jaguars. He coached the quarterbacks there, which is what he's also coaching for the Indianapolis Colts. He's the quarterback coach. So he dealt with the likes of Blake Bortles, Cody Kessler, Gardner Minshew, and Nick Foles while he was dealing with that team. So he didn't have the best quarterback carousel. But you know, this is going to be an interesting move for him going to Indianapolis, because that position's quite up in the air there. However, I think it just kind of shows where Scott's what's the word?
Priorities?
Where he wants to be. Yeah, his priorities are. It's clear he wants to be south of the border, coaching at an NFL level now that he left a head coaching gig to go back to a quarterback coach position. So we're going to see him down there. Wish him nothing but the best. You know, I can't fault a guy in going and doing what he wants to do. So if that's the position he wants to be in, man, I would never hate an NFL position, right? So it's interesting there. But for the hire, how do you say his name? Jamie
Elizondo.
Elizondo.
I hope it's not Elizondo, but maybe we'll find out
That's
if it comes
okay.
on the podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, for him, looking at his career with the Red Blacks as the OC, it's quite good. He won the Grey Cup in 2016, and that was with Henry Burris at the time. But here's the thing that I really wanted to point out, because he's going to Edmonton with Harris. So he helped Harris with 42 starts. He had a 70.6% completion, 13,100 yards, 68 touchdowns, 26 interceptions, 106.4 rating through all that.
Wow.
So
and most of that was against my Alouettes.
Yeah, that's right. And to be honest with you, very, very great statistics for Harris. They did well together. I think they went to a Grey Cup, maybe even
2018. They went to the Grey Cup. Yeah.
That's right. And with that being said, looking at it, I think the transition isn't going to be hard for the offense to do well in Edmonton. It's going to be that transition from a coordinator to going to that head coach and seeing if he can get the full meal deal with the whole entire team. That's always the trouble with going from an offensive coordinator to a head coach. Instead of just dissecting one side of the ball, dissecting the right plans there, he's got to now bring the whole team together and attack that goal and keep it going throughout the whole season. And it's not easy to win the Grey Cup in the CFL. So that's where I think the biggest learning curve is going to come for him. But he definitely has the right pieces there with Trevor Harris, his quarterback, being there.
I think you hit that out of the park, Oz. Did you have any additional thoughts on that?
No, I think Zach hit a lot of points. I guess my first initial reaction was anytime you lose a Grey Cup winning head coach, it kind of sucks to have that brain drain leave the CFL. Same thing happened with Chris Jones. He took an assistant role with the
just going to
Browns.
bring that up. God, that burned my ass when that happened
Yeah.
2 years ago. Yeah.
And so, yeah, you hate to see it, but the Jamie Elizondo pairing with Trevor Harris, as Zach already mentioned, it looks like it's lightning in a bottle. So I think that's going to be really good for Edmonton.
And they brought back Darrell Walker to pair with Greg Ellingson. So, I mean, you got a lot to work with there. Unfortunately, it came at the expense of friend of the podcast, Ricky Collins Jr., who was due a $30,000 roster bonus. And they released him the day before they could pay it to him. And that's just kind of been one of the unfortunate aspects of the CFL bargaining agreement, is that that's still a reality. The contracts aren't guaranteed. So we're thinking of Ricky. We hope he's, land somewhere soon. And I think he will. I mean, he's a 1,000-yard receiver perennially when he's played full seasons, which is often. So I think he'll be there. If you want to go support him right now, he's got football camps running down south in Texas, I believe, Route Demons. And so wish I could call myself a route demon, but I was too slow. So could have used one of his camps in Canada, but definitely go check that out. And you can definitely follow him on Instagram too and check out that episode. But we'll hopefully be seeing him sign with a new team right away. And then we saw some quarterback shuffling, guys. We saw Nick Arbuckle getting released and reuniting with his quarterback coach from Calgary in Toronto, who's now the head coach, Ryan Dinwiddie. And then we saw another friend of the podcast, Matt Nichols, who we had on here in May, talking about how excited he was to suit up in double blue. And now he's heading down to Ottawa to reunite with Paul LaPolice, who was his offensive coordinator in Winnipeg 2 years ago. And I believe a couple years even before that as well. So it's pretty almost like these pairings better now this year than I did last year when they were on the opposite teams. But Zach, you're kind of hinting at it last week in the group chat. You're not all in on Arbuckle, and that's not to take away from the flashes he has shown, but where's some of your skepticism coming in as an Argos fan?
Yeah, man. Okay, don't get that wrong. We'll probably have Arbuckle on here someday, and I'm really excited about that. And that's not, I just try to be as unbiased as possible and bring my opinion out here and see what everyone else has to say. You guys can prove me wrong. Listeners, please send me a message telling me I'm wrong here, but bear with me because I think we're in a really interesting transition here with Toronto, and I've been doing quite a bit of research on them recently, being my team, and now moving into finally we get a season here, and it's an interesting hire. It reminds me a lot comparisons to it hasn't worked out yet, but it could with the Cincinnati Bengals, Zach Taylor going there from a quarterback coach from the Rams. But these young, innovative minds is what I'm getting at, getting these opportunities maybe a little earlier than what you would expect. Looking at Ryan Dinwiddie's career, he was from 2013 to 2015 quality passing game or quality offensive quality coordinator,
control.
Yeah, that was brutal, man. I'm gonna re-listen to that and be like, really, Zach? You're gonna say that like that on the pod?
Just a word salad, eh?
Yeah. Wow. That was interesting. But then after that, from 2016 to 2019, jumped with Calgary as the quarterback coach, as you alluded to, Steve. Now, being the head coach, he's 40 years old. That's a big jump. He's never been a coordinator, had full reign over an offense or anything like that to then move in, as I was talking about the Edmonton hire. But looking at it, I like the familiarity for Arbuckle and Dinwiddie to get back together here. That's great and all. However, when we look at it, there were two things about Arbuckle that scared me. First of all, when you watch him play, he did play with that cowboy instinct. I think we can agree on that. That was cool.
Yeah.
He liked to throw deep. He could do that. But looking at him and analyzing it from a quarterback, and I'd be interested to hear what you guys say on this, but when you see him throw the football and such, reckless is kind of the way I would feel. One thing I noticed is his motion would always kind of change. His leg positioning would be different, and it caused some inaccuracy at times. However, he did have a high completion percentage, so I don't want to say that completely that he was inaccurate, but he was also in a system that really complements quarterback play. You do see a lot of quarterbacks go through Calgary and play very, very well there. He won 4 out of 7 games, so he was above 50% there, which is great. But it's a very small sample size, and we're putting a lot on him now to be our franchise quarterback. So what right now, I have that feeling in Toronto, we're really, we'll get into, I think you're going to bring up the free agent frenzy that Toronto's had. We'll talk about that in a second, but we're really setting ourselves up for, inexperienced quarterback and head coach by putting the pieces around them to allow them to build into the roster and then hopefully become a championship team down the line. I'm here for it, but I have some concerns about it as well. I was really happy about Matt Nichols being there because he was so technically sound and a great leader and had that experience behind him, but we're going all in on the young, high flying style right now. And I'm here for it. It's going to be exciting, and I hope it turns out for us.
I hope it does too. I think the fit is like, I really like the fit more than I maybe would have liked Nichols and Dinwiddie, but maybe the experience of Nichols could have balanced out Dinwiddie's inexperience. But I just love that they have that time together in Calgary to kind of build off of, and then the subsequent moves that they've made that we'll get to. I think for me is, it's just that kind of 7 starts, right? And we saw Toronto anoint James Franklin in 2019 as their next franchise guy based on the small sample size that he had lighting it up with Edmonton. And that ended up being an absolute train wreck, and that's putting it nicely. It sounds like just today for insurance, you guys signed Antonio Pipkin. So that'll be really great to see him go in there and compete. And I think Ozzy has some experience watching Pipkin. He's shown flashes, but a little, you want to talk about reckless. I mean, that he throws a lot of picks. Arbuckle, to his credit, only had 5 interceptions in those 7 starts, 11 touchdowns. But yeah, definitely has that kind of cowboy instinct in there where he's going to make those, sometimes deeper throws. And I think that's going to come with experience. I saw Marshall Ferguson, who breaks down kind of the analytics and the stats, and Arbuckle's really accurate in that short to mid-range window. And so I think if they implement a similar kind of offense in Calgary, he'll be able to kind of stick to what he knows and then build on that. And I think it honestly reminds me of, and you're going to laugh because this is hilarious, the Browns, right? Inexperienced head coach, inexperienced quarterback. And then what did they do? They support him with an all-star cast. And I don't want to get too far into it because I want to get Ozzy's thoughts on it first. But I mean, they've really just loaded up talent around him. That's putting it lightly. I know. Ozzy, any thoughts on this?
Just go straight into it, Steve.
Just get straight into it? Okay,
that's an easy transition.
Yeah, we'll glide into it. Okay, so they the Argos acquired more of the Stampeders' 2018 Grey Cup winning team with Cordero Law, defensive end and pass rushing specialist, Eric Rogers, star receiver. And then if that wasn't enough, I got to pull open my notes over here. There we go. They have Juwan Brescison, which I hope I'm saying that right. Devaris Daniels, both former Stampeders. Levi Noel, which I believe is a former Alouette. Martavius Bryant, NFL fans will recognize that name, former Pittsburgh Steeler and I guess at the time Oakland Raider. And then the 2019 draft, the 2020 draft, they drafted Dejon Brissett, a receiver, really talented out of this U Sports, as they CIS. So they've just loaded them up with receiving talent. I mean, this team is ready to throw it all over the place. And I was looking at their Calgary splits from last year, and assuming they implement the same offense, Calgary passed 69% of the time and only ran 31% of the time. And they had similar splits on first downs as well. So, I mean, they're going to come in passing, and they have the weapons to do it now. I think this team is ready to rock and roll. I just hope I hope it's more of a 2020 Brown season for the Argos than it was a 2019. Obviously, some expectations to live up to with the more free agent acquisitions they bring in. But yeah, Ozzy, are you shaking in your boots for the Argos? How do you feel about this?
I mean, I don't know how often it's happened in the CFL. I've been kind of amateur in my CFL fandom over the years, but this has very much dream team vibes. I've had a couple of those in the NFL, and so I think that this could just be. I'm not shaking in my boots yet. I really like what the Alouettes have as a base right now, and the Argos, they've got some proving to do before I'll start shivering over here or shaking, whatever adjective or verb, not adjective.
Well, I mean, Ozzy, your Alouettes have responded in kind, signing Almondo Sewell, just an absolute wrecker on the defensive line for the Edmonton Football Team over the past couple of years, is now in Montreal. I believe you guys got Deontay Evans, if I'm not mistaken.
No, he was expected to sign with us, and he went with freaking Hamilton. I was so sad about that.
But you got one more guy. I forget what his name was.
You got Patrick Levels and Chris Aki.
Yeah.
So I was very happy with those defensive signings. They're obviously focused on the defense right now. And to get a sack artist in Sewell, even if we just needed somebody along the defensive line, that he's a big body, and 8 sacks for the Alouettes seems like just an enormous amount. We needed some help getting after the quarterback. And so I'm super pumped to get even him. But then I believe Chris Aki and Patrick Levels are both linebackers, so it's nice to shore up the defense quite well. It would have been even better to get Deontay Evans. Oh man, that would have been.
Well, Cameron Judge, linebacker for the Rough Riders, is still available, so you could even add some more.
Heck yeah.
I guess more in free agency news, guys. It just opened up today, so we're just trying to absorb it all. The Riders went to work. I'm wearing my Dressler jersey. This isn't a Fajardo jersey. This is Dressler. I haven't been able to invest in the new one quite yet. But Micah Johnson's back in green and white. And then they went and signed Larry Dean, taking him out of the Edmonton Football Team rotation, linebacker now, replacing Cameron Judge, presumably. And I also love that name. That's just that's a very business-like name. Like Larry Dean is here to work and work only. It's just like that is a lunch pail kind of like I'm here to get shit done kind of name. So love that. And obviously they re-signed a slew of receivers, kept Fajardo. So I'm really liking, and they also signed, I'm going to forget his name now, but offensive lineman from Ottawa, local Saskatchewan boy.
Eckerneck.
No, I don't think we'll call him that. But has multiple starts at right guard and right tackle, so very versatile. And like Dan Clark and Brandon Labatt are getting up there in age. So I'm really liking that. Like they were able to go and secure the O-line for Fajardo to throw for 5,000 yards, 40 touchdowns, something like that, something light. But as the dust settles, guys, next week we'll be back with like a full kind of recap of CFL free agency, and we'll kind of rank which teams hit it out of the park and which teams could do better. Zach.
Steve, I just had to mention one thing.
Yeah.
You missed 2 huge signings for Toronto. We also signed Charleston Hughes, defensive end, who even at his age of 37 has been tearing up the league. Yeah. And also John White, 1,000-yard rusher from BC as well. So yeah, dream team, but the real dream team, Aussie. Okay. So
God, Cordero Law
excited.
And Charleston Hughes coming off the edge, man.
Yeah. That's what I've been thinking. Right. And they're both experienced. Like, we get some young talent either in the draft or, pick someone up in free agency that we can move in there. I know we've put some emphasis on getting some older talent there as we've been trying to do the rebuild the last few years there. I like that we're actually getting some veterans, and Charleston Hughes is turning into that ageless wonder, man. Like that Cameron Wake style, seems to not go away. Like 2018, I think it was, he had like 15 and a half sacks at 35. So I'm excited.
I'm choked we lost him. Like, that's pretty devastating loss for the Riders. Evan Johnson is his name, by the way, the guard the Riders signed. So I'm pretty happy about that.
I was just looking for that. I couldn't find it.
Evan Johnson, you said?
Yeah.
Sorry, Evan Johnson. When I said Peckerhead, it wasn't because of you. It was because of Saskatchewan, the team as a whole.
Yeah, Zach's
Not a big fan. So
Fair.
you're not a Peckerhead or Peckerneck, whatever I said.
I think you said Peckerneck, so you just further insulted him, and now you're trying to take both back. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So we think we have our first enemy of the pod now, thanks to Zach. Okay, guys, and in off the field news, the Edmonton football team has narrowed their search down to 7 names, and there's something. So we got the Edmonton Elk, the Edmonton Elk Hounds, the Edmonton Elements, the Edmonton Eclipse, the Edmonton Evergreens, the Edmonton Evergolds, and the Edmonton Eagles. I think right away you can eliminate Elements and Eclipse because they'll sound like junior hockey team names, like really team names. So I get rid of that. I don't know what an Evergold is. I think that's grass or something like that. The Eagles is like, there's already an NFL team called the Eagles. So the Elk Hounds, or Evergreens are the 3 I would narrow it down to. I'm personally a fan of elk if that's what it comes to. I think you could kind of do like a cool, like an antler kind of thing on the helmet. But where are you guys falling on this, man? I mean, we don't have to get into like should they have, it was probably the right move to move on from the Edmonton Eskimos name, but I mean, at this point, they probably should just scrap the second E and just started fresh. But now you've really limited your search and database here, and we're left with some pretty mixed bag here.
I thought they had Empire in there, like they were talking like Edmonton Empire. Or
they scrapped that in the summer because I think they thought that would be a little too colonial, like Empire, as in like.
Oh no.
Yeah,
and I like that.
I liked the because their slogan was One Empire, and they actually had it trademarked. So I thought it was a perfect transition. Like Edmonton Empire would have been like, okay.
The Evergreen sounds too wussy, I think, in mine. I don't know. I don't like it. I like
a big tree.
The Evergreens. You said no. The
Evergreens and Evergolds.
Evergolds.
I don't mind the Evergolds, actually. That's not as bad, but
yeah,
the other ones sound kind of like a soccer FC style, Eclipse and like,
Elements.
I don't know. But the Elk is like almost, I'm an elk. Like it's too much in your face. Like
I hope if they choose elk, I hope they play that sound bite before like they come out of the tunnels. Like, I'm an elk. They come running out.
Like guys go hunting for elk, right? Like I don't know.
It's like you're either the hammer or the nail. You're either the shooter or the elk. Like, do you want to be the elk or elk intimidating? And then that's where
whatever sound they make.
Like this makes, like when I first heard the Red Blacks, I was like, what in the world? Like why? But now it's just like part of regular verbiage, right? It's like, I don't even think it's that weird. Like Ottawa Red Blacks. It's kind of cool. But like, I just don't know if like elk will age that well or any of these really. Like I don't know if we'll come around on these like we have every other CFL name. So
I only like the Eagles because I know it works, and maybe that's just too like boomer of me to like. I know that the Eagles are right, and plus when you frame it in the context of the remaining 6 names, like Eagles is far and away the best. Elk Hounds. I mean,
isn't that a dog?
It's a dog, and it's a kind of a vicious looking dog, but at the same time, it's got elk in there. So then there's going to be confusion across nations they're going to be like, oh, the elk hounds, like they must be some fierce elk, but no, they're not fierce elk. They're dogs, but
they're dogs.
Can't you go with something a little more dog like? I don't know, but what do I know? Like
the Edmonton Emus.
The emus would have been better than any of these.
Yeah, we could go on for a while, but our
100th episode is just going to be dissecting the various names that Edmonton could have.
We'll just go up and down the line, and we'll just each say a name that starts with E, and we'll just keep going for an hour, just like elk water, and then Zach will go ears, and then Ozzy will go earth, and then we'll just like, that's it. No energy, no, just words. But
did they have a timeline on
I think by spring. I mean, I don't think they're going to rebrand the jerseys or the logo, hence why they're keeping an E name. It's just going to be kind of like other merchandise, I guess, that they probably want to get on the ground running. So
Is it a vote? Like, or what are they?
I
actually
submitted.
don't
You
know.
can actually go on, and I think it'll be on the Edmonton Football Team website or the CFL website, and you can rank them. But it asks you like what city you reside in and stuff. So I have a feeling it's going to be weighted more towards like what people in Edmonton actually want. But I ordered mine accordingly, and I had Elkin number 1 because I just felt like that probably would be the best one.
The
But
Edmonton Elk.
Let's go Elk.
Elk.
It's
And then
weird.
someone
No,
was
it
saying on
doesn't
Twitter,
work.
like, you can
Doesn't
call the
work.
fans alcoholics. So that'd be kind of fun.
Oh, that's not what you want. That is not what you. Oh man,
All
I'm an alcoholic.
How would that be this?
Oh man.
Dude, no.
Unicorn. I was on. I was doing 1. You got 2 up there.
Oh, they're gonna be rebranding in 2 years.
Yeah, that'll be a quick one.
Holy
Okay, guys. So
crap.
more CFL news coming your way. We can hopefully line up some interviews to get there, some players' reactions to a wild free agency period. And God, we hope there's a CFL season. I'm ready to get back to a game, or if not in a stadium, at least watching one. But in the time being, have hot takes, NFL, CFL related, shoot them at us, and we'll talk about them here. And yeah, you can find me on Twitter at SteveBolin22. And you can find me on Instagram at @SteveBolin_. Obviously, all the amateur agency accounts too. We respond to right away. It's all connected. It's all interconnected. Zach, where can the fine folks find you?
Hello, and you can. Why did I say hello? You can find me on Twitter at Zach Foth and on Instagram at ZachFoth_.
And Mr. Dal Longer, where can everyone find you at?
Well, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at EDMElk.
People are gonna start. Oh my God!
Just kidding. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at AustinPaul_. That's awesome with a Y, not an I.
Not an I.
And
Not an I.
let's get some new names.
And yeah, shout out to Lash and Ian, by the way, for hopping on last week in my absence, and you guys for holding it down. That was a great episode. So go check that out, but then stop listening at the part where we give our predictions, because all of us were wrong except Ozzy. So just ignore that. Ozzy, you're gonna have to end the episode because you're at the controls. So I'll say good night and Godspeed, and we're gonna leave Ozzy to cut the episode right now.